What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Coffin Curse Records Oh Hell Yeah podcast. On today's episode, we welcome TB Monstrosity from the famous horror punk band BLITZKID. Also from the Coffin Curse Records band, A Gathering of None. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh hell yeah!
Let's get into it. So introduce
Absolutely.
yourself and give a little background about you.
What's going on, everybody? I am TB or TB Monstrosity, if you prefer. Was in BLITZKID, and still in BLITZKID. I say was because I'm still not like the whole like, oh yeah, we're back together thing. It's not. It's not. I guess it should be by now. We just did a tour and everything, but BLITZKID. I've been in BLITZKID since 1997. We broke up for about 10 years in 2012. We just came back around 2020. I've been doing that since 1997. Like I said, also a member of A Gathering of None, and that is about to turn 10 as of this year. In November of this year, Gathering of None will be 10. And I also am in Dragnun. I play guitar and sing for Dragnun, and it's just what it sounds like. That's the name is it was inspired by nuns in drag, as it were. But yeah, that's me, man. I've been playing music since 1991, so over 30 years now. And been all over the United States, all over Europe, all over Canada, South America, Russia. And here we are.
It's incredible. That's incredible, man. So for anyone who doesn't know the background of you and I, we haven't been in the same room in 20 years. I really truly think it's been 20 years since you and I have been in the same room.
It's probably been over that, bro. To be honest with you,
I think the last time that I played with BLITZKID, Darling Articles played with BLITZKID in Bristol at, what was it, 8th Street, or what was that pub called?
7th Street. Yeah. 7th Street Saloon.
Yeah, that was 2001. So it's been 22 years.
Wow. That's
since
crazy.
You and I have been in the room together.
That's crazy,
but
dude.
You and I have been friends for well over 20 years now.
Oh, easily, yeah. 25 or so, probably, yeah.
Yeah. It's wow, this getting old stuff.
It's crazy to me because, again, not to harp on the BLITZKID thing, but when we were out on the BLITZKID tour recently, we met people, and Johnson City specifically was one of these times where it happened. Was we'd meet people on tour, and they're like, hey, I used to see you guys play in, insert area X here. And they'd be like, I used to see you guys play in, whatever, my town, et cetera, et cetera. And I was 18 when I started coming to see you play. And this is my daughter, and she's now 18, and she's like 6 feet tall or something, right? And again in Johnson City, this lady goes, I came to see you guys play the day I found out I was pregnant. And no shit, man. She's like, this is my daughter, and she's like taller than all of us, right? She's like 6'4",
Wow.
And she's like, and she just turned 21 today. So I'm just like, holy crap, we've been around for a while. Yeah, I get it, man. It's funny how time just seems, especially in bands, as you can probably relate to this as well. Yeah. When you're in a band, man, like a year seems like 3 months. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like So it's time to just, it's so fleeting, and it just keeps flying by, man. It's crazy.
It's incredible though, dude. I mean, like what a great feeling to be able to have a band that has the lasting power to be around for 2 decades plus, but also to be able to play to people you're playing to people in a, like, most of us don't get to experience being a generational band. I mean, you guys are a generational band. You're still young men who are on the road playing to people who have kids, who are in fucking college and who are starting careers and have bills. And I mean, it's, how crazy is that?
It's really crazy. And one of the 3 things we would hear on this recent tour, going back to that whole generational thing, is people would say, like I said, one of 3 things every night. They would say, when you guys broke up in 2012, I thought I'd never get to see you play live again. Or I got into you guys about 6 months before you broke up in 2012, and I thought I'd never get to experience you live ever. Or I got my kids into you guys, and they're here with me tonight. So it's wild, man. And like I said, in some instances, those kids were now in their like late teens, early 20s. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think that, from our humble beginnings in Bluefield, / Princeton, West Virginia, to how, people all over the United States and all over the world are, BLITZKID fans now. It's super humbling, and it's definitely blessed my life, for sure. And just to see all that, like you said, the generational thing happening on tour every day was wild, and it was really rewarding. Very cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, to watch you guys during a pandemic where people are not working, not spending money, staying at home, just completely having their lives wrecked. To watch you guys be able to put up vinyl reissues and live records and them sell out in minutes, less than an hour. I mean, that has to be so rewarding to be able to say, holy shit.
It's crazy.
There are people who can't even, there are people who aren't leaving their house for 6 months at a time. And they're still so devoted to this band. They're going to buy a record right now. Like, how fucking rewarding.
It's crazy, and like at the same time, during the pandemic, especially, I would feel kind of bad because I'm like, I know these people don't have, the extra money potentially to do this right now, but the fact that they are, without question, without like remorse, without repercussion, anything, they're just like, I'm buying it, and I'm just like, all right, that's cool. But I'm that way with bands too. Like if somebody puts out something that I really want and I'm a fan of, I get it as well. So I'm cut from that same cloth.
Yeah, but you guys were fans, doing, you guys were doing exactly what you had to do. It's what every other band had to do. You were in the middle of a pandemic, just like everyone else. You couldn't work. So how do you make your money? Like, I'm sure Bad Religion did not love that they had to do live stream concerts to pay their bills. But at the same time, when your career is this, it's just like anybody else. You have to figure out a way to hustle.
Absolutely.
I was blessed to have a job through the pandemic that literally didn't fire me till I worked more in 2020 and 2021 than I worked in 2018 and 2019. At the day after Christmas 2021, my job decided to let us all go. But I was blessed to have those 2 solid years of working like a dog, because I was one of those, the people that were considered, I can't remember the terminology that we as
the essential employees.
Yes, man, I couldn't remember that term. Yes, I was among the essential employees. But enough of that talk. Tell me. Before we move on to Aegon, tell me what you experienced on this tour. It was 3 months, correct?
Oh no, it was just a little over 6 weeks, about 7 weeks, but 7 weeks total. With because I consider the moment that I leave my house and head up to meet the guys to start rehearsing, whatever, I consider that tour, right? So it was about 7 weeks total for all of us. Almost 2 months.
So in that 2 months, can you pinpoint one experience that completely to this day trips you out the most, like something you would not have expected to happen?
Yeah. We had at the Pittsburgh show, which was one of the last shows of the tour.
Yeah.
There was a couple there with their little girl. And she was 9. She was 9, and dude, like, to see her losing her mind while we were playing right up front, like people pitting all around her. Of course, they were keeping her safe and everything, but it was crazy. It was crazy. And at the end of the night, like I gave her one of my guitar picks. I gave her my set list, and she wanted to take pictures with us. And her and her mom and dad were actually at the VIP thing that we would do before the shows. We would do like a small acoustic set, sign stuff for people. They could get first dibs on the merch, all that stuff. While we were doing that, what we would like to do is we'd play a few songs, and then we're like, anybody have any questions, stuff you want to know about BLITZKID, anything like that? And again, 9 years old, like probably better spoken than myself right now. She's like, raises her hand, and she's like, where did you guys come up with the name BLITZKID? And I'm like, this kid's awesome.
That's awesome.
And so that one really stood out because you could just tell that not only her, but her mom and dad were just so thankful and so happy to have us out on the road and have us play a show where they could come see it. And it was just, there were several nights like that, where we met people's kids who, again, were like between the ages of like 8, 9, 11, literally like usually like every 2 or 3 days, there was someone really young in the audience, who absolutely loved us. Like this one girl in Seattle, her name's Sarah, her daughter actually like designed this little like doll in a coffin for us and had like, bedazzled, like pretty in a casket on. I was just like, this is crazy. So the fact that, again, it goes back to the generational thing, that we're just seeing so many people who are, not even in their teens, like that love BLITZKID. It's wild because, like I think we've been a band for 25 years, that's a long time. But other than that, I would have to say one of the most, not necessarily crazy, but just kind of, I just found it kind of quizzical and kind of funny that we signed so many weird objects for people on this tour. Because normally it's like, oh yeah, can you sign my wallet or, my ticket stub, whatever, and that's, but on this tour, dude, it was crazy. Like we signed an iPhone 13, like not the case, the actual phone. We signed a Grimace Happy Meal toy, like a scary clown looking like plastic baby head. I'm trying to think of what else. A Cayman Islands $100 note. Signed a guy's.
They're never going to spend that.
Yeah, right. So, what else? Like Cayman Islands $100 note. There was also a guy's military ID.
Oh my gosh.
A Budweiser can, a Navajo foraging basket. That was in Albuquerque.
Wow.
Yeah, just all kinds of crazy stuff, man. A $5 bill. But the one that took the cake for us was right here close to home, was in Richmond, Virginia. This kid comes up at the end of the night and he's just, you can tell he's had a few or whatever. He's had a good time. And he's like, hey, you guys signed my social security card? And I said, your what? He goes, my social security card, man. And he hands it to us, legitimately his social security card. And we're like, do you want us to sign? No, man, sign the back. So I said, okay, yeah, we'll totally ruin your identity for you, sure,
Yeah.
But yeah, so
using that again.
Right, exactly. Like dudes walking around with a, TB Monstrosity and Argyle Goolsby and Randy from Darker Days was filling in for us at that show. Walking around with those 3 signatures on the back of his social security card. Go figure. Yeah. But yeah, those are two of the instances that really stuck out to me, was just the love that people had for us and just the strange things they wanted us to sign.
Well, you mentioned it there, so I'll go ahead and ask that question. What is the story behind the juggling of drummers on this tour? Is there a long story, short story?
I can summarize it for you. Basically, the drummer that we had lined up over the course of the last 2.5 years, and there, when I say this, there's no bad blood. It was all amicable and everything's cool, and we wish him well and everything like that. But the drummer that we had lined up, who had done the All Hallows Streams vinyls with us, DVDs, et cetera, we got on tour, and within the 3rd day, he kind of comes to us and he says, and I'm, being transparent here, again, not trying to throw a dude under the bus or be, there's no ill will or anything like that. But he said, hey, listen, he said, I don't think my mental health and my anxiety are going to be able to cope with this. So I'm going to go home. And of course, we're like, what? At first, but then we talked with him and we understood his position, and it still sucked. It was still a bummer, but we said, okay, well, can you give us the next 2 days to try to line someone up? And he goes, no, I got to go home now, because we were in Providence, Rhode Island. and he lived in Massachusetts, and he said, "This is the closest I'm going to be to home, you know, for the remainder of the tour." He was like, "So I got to go home tonight." So he said, "Okay." So that left us without a drummer for the following shows, which was New Jersey, which was going to be a big show for us because we have New Jersey's like home away from home for us.
Yeah.
And then the Richmond show, and we had Halloween in DC. So, you know, and it didn't matter to us. Like, you know, Goolsby and I, we're going to Depeche Mode this shit if we have to, you know, get up there with the drum machine, you know,
after what, like 3 years of trying to get this tour together.
Nearly.
I'm sure both of your mindsets were, fuck it, man. The show's got to go on, you know?
Yeah, we didn't care how we were like, we're going to do it. We don't know how just yet. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
gosh. Yeah. So that was a tremendous blow. But as luck would have it, our friend Randy Mason, Randy the Savage, as we call him, from Darker Days, who are also from Massachusetts. He and his guitar player Nick were actually planning on coming to see us the next night in New Jersey, because they weren't able, I think they were at Providence as well, or Nick was in Providence, but I don't think Randy was able to come to that one. So they were both going to, you know, traipse down to there and see us in New Jersey. And we said, well, listen, we have a bit of a situation. And at the time, we had already spoken to our friend Ryan as well, who plays drums for the freaking 70s metal band Pentagram.
Yeah.
You know, and he had already said, yeah, I don't have anything going on, but I can't get there till Halloween. So I said, well, Randy, while we got you on the phone here, you know, why don't you play the next 2 nights for us? And of course he was like, heck yeah, you know, thankfully, thank you, Randy, if you're listening.
Yeah.
And Randy kind of saved the day for us in New Jersey and in Richmond, Virginia. So literally the next day, we'd already spoken to Ryan, guy named Ryan Manning. He's a killer drummer. He's played for Damnation, played for the Devil's Twins. Like I said, now he plays for the band Pentagram. He also has his own project called Lady of the Dunes, which is another like low and slow kind of doom sludge metal kind of project. So, so we're like, you know, in my mind, you know, and I know Ryan's a capable drummer. He proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. But in my mind, I'm like, is all our stuff going to be slow? Because, you know, but you know, unfortunately, you know, understandably, because that's Ryan's gig now. He plays, you know, slower stuff. But, you know, Ryan has a very storied history in playing in a lot of hardcore and punk bands up in Massachusetts when he was younger. So, you know, I'm like, okay, it'll be fine. You know, so Randy plays the shows with us in New Jersey and Richmond. They go off without a hitch, which is fine. And literally the next day, on our way to DC, we get to the airport in DC. We drop Randy off at departures, drive back up to arrivals, pick up Ryan, who's had no rehearsal whatsoever with us, never played a note with us, who had just literally been listening to the songs on his you know, on his iPhone on the plane, and like a couple days before. And we go to the pie shop in DC and we play the show. Wow. and it was awesome, man, because, you know, honestly, there could have been a lot more like of a learning curve than there was. Like by his third show, man, it was pretty much locked in. You know, the first couple of nights, of course, he's still learning some of the songs, learning some of the cues and everything like that. But by the third night he was on tour with us, Ryan had it locked down, man. And, you know, you want to talk about somebody who came through for us in a clutch, man. Ryan, we kept joking on the tour saying Ryan saved Halloween. And he essentially did. You know, he saved the entire tour for us. He and Randy from Darker Days, they killed it, man. And Ryan was just such a great pleasure to tour with. He was cut from the same cloth that Goolsby and I are. You know, we joked around. We had similar senses of humor. You know, and that's, you know, as you know, being in bands for as long as you have as well. Yeah. You don't have a rapport with someone. It doesn't matter how good they are. You know, they can be a killer musician. They could know all their stuff, and they can be on point, but if you wake up every day, because you're living with them essentially when you're on tour, if you wake up every day and the first thing you see of them, you're like, God, you know, it was never like that with Ryan. Every day it was like, hey, what's up, bro? You know, hey, good, you sleep well? Yeah, I slept great. You know, it was just all love, man. It was cool. It was cool. Ryan was just excellent touring partner, and you know, we'll probably have him out with us very soon again, because he killed it, man. He killed it. And one of the things that made us know that we made the right decision, I'm kind of stammering right now because I get excited about it. But one of the things that lets us know that we made the right decision is every night on tour, we would introduce Ryan, and like people would like start chanting his name, or like, they were doing the thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
That whole thing. And every night, like people that we know and love and respect that we've known for years who would come to see us play, every night they'd be like, that dude.
Yeah.
That's your guy, man.
Because they know that he saved the day. I mean, they are just like everyone else who wanted to see you for the 3 years that the pandemic kept shitting all over your tour, and cancellation after cancellation. And for you guys to show up in their town and say, hey, Poughkeepsie, this show might not have happened if it wasn't for Ryan.
Yeah.
Those people were going in their minds, because if I would have been there, that's what I would have thought. I would have thought, man, that dude right there, he saved the day. Because we wouldn't be here right now. You guys would have been home with your tails tucked, and it would have been, I mean, you never know. That's the kind of stuff that after all the stuff that you guys had to deal with to make that tour work, I could see that being the thing that would be the straw that broke the camel's back, where you both said, hey, listen, love you, man, but this is too much.
Right. This third time is not a charm. What's going on here? Yeah. No,
and coming from a drummer, I mean, me being a drummer, I can tell you right now, the fact that he locked in within 3 shows by learning your songs through MP3s, that's incredible. Because there's no way you guys play those songs after some of those songs being 20 plus years old. There's no way you play them the same way live. You played them when you recorded them. A lot of those sessions that you guys do now are completely different than the studio albums.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was the other thing that was so seamless. Like he picked up on, because he would hear it one way, over the headphones and studio versions, whatever, and he'd be like, well, I was listening to this live version and I noticed you guys did this now, or did this, when you were active playing live, years ago. I'm like, yeah, that's totally what's going on. Do that, So yeah, he really did his homework, man, and he would sit for like hours, on like I said, those first 3-4 days on the road with us, he would sit for hours and just jam the set list, making sure he got stuff, where it needed to be. So kudos to Ryan, man.
Yeah, I'm sure those live albums definitely helped.
Yeah, for sure. The one, like I said, the one thing that I took away from it is not only is he just a killer drummer, he was just so easy to tour with, man. Such a team player, dude's not in the band, right? He could have just been like, well, I'm taking my drums in and that's it. But he drove. He would.
Oh wow.
Like he did everything like a band member would do in that situation, and it was awesome, man. Like we had no complaints whatsoever. Ryan, if you are listening, sir, many thank yous. You saved Halloween.
Well, let's talk about this right here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little Gathering of None.
Sure.
So we're already at about 20 minutes. So I definitely want to have a part 2 in the future where we just talk all a Gathering of None.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would love to get the past. I've been a fan of a Gathering of None for years, but not for 10 years. To be honest with you, I honestly was introduced to the Gathering of None by the singer of my band, Reckless Threat. Dylan introduced me to a Gathering of None. And nice. I mean, it was no more than 3 years ago. So I obviously knew you were in a metal band. I knew that a Gathering of None existed, but I wasn't up to what you guys had done for the first 5 years of your career.
Sure. So
I would love to have an episode where we just talk for 30 minutes on a Gathering of None. But what I want to ask you now is tell me what you guys are up to. And I know, but let's let the people at home watching, tell me what you guys are up to now for 2023, because I know you've got a lot of plans for Aegon.
Yeah, 2023 for a Gathering of None, hopefully, is going to be busier than the last almost 4 years have been for us. We haven't been on a stage for a live show since April of 2019. That all changes this month. We're playing Eddie Fest, which is a concert that myself and Joey Lowe from Dragnun have organized. It's a tribute show for our friend Eddie Baker. And we started it kind of as a benefit show at the time because Eddie was in the hospital. He was having some really bad health problems. And we said, let's do a benefit show for his hospital expenses. And in the interim of getting the show together, Eddie passed away. So it became a tribute show. So we said last year, 2021 now, December 2021 was the first show. At the end of that night, Joey and I said, we should do this again, or even make it an annual thing, kind of like the Joey Ramone birthday bash up in New York City. So we decided to do that, and here we are. But yeah, Gathering of None, we'll be playing Eddie Fest, and it's our first show, like I said, since April of 2019. We're all super stoked. We haven't been in the same room, the five of us, except for maybe once. I don't even think it was once. I think it was only four of us at one point. Yeah, it was only the four of us. All five of us have not been in the same room together since late 2019.
Wow.
So it's crazy because, as you know, Gathering of None is done kind of remotely. We operate remotely because myself and my drummer Chris, we live here in Bluefield, but then Ken lives down in Christiansburg area, and then Jeff, our rhythm guitar player, lives in New Jersey, and then Justin, our lead guitarist and our studio, who produces us, mixes us, whatever, all excellent songwriter, the whole nine yards. He lives in San Antonio. So, for us to do anything, and that's the other thing too, I think a lot of people are like, well, why doesn't the Gathering of None, play out more? I'm like, well, because we live states away from one another. We have to have like 3-4 months in advance to plan anything. We had to have 3-4 months in advance to play Eddie Fest, just that show. So, but yeah, that's on the docket first, the Eddie Fest gig. And then hopefully we're going to reconvene sometime in the summer and start working on a new record. We've already got a lot of songs in pre-production and demoed out and everything, and they sound really good. But we're still tweaking a few of them as you do. But hopefully during the summer, we're going to either start recording or maybe do some more demoing of some of the new record. And hopefully sometime in the late fall or early winter, we'll be recording that new album. So it'll be probably not until 2024 till you get new A Gathering of None music. But we've kind of talked over that too. We might record one song and just kind of release it as a single from the new record, at least, to have something out there, or 2 songs, what have you. But yeah, and our biggest thing is we want to play some more shows, man, because I know, like, I'm all showed up right now, like I just got off the road. I just got off the road for 6 weeks. I'm good, but that's for BLITZKID. With A Gathering of None, like, I'm so itching and I'm so ready to play shows with The Gathering of None. I can't stand it because, again, it's been since 2019. So that's another thing we're going to try to do, at least for 2023, as aside from, getting the new record and everything straightened out. We're going to hopefully play a few more shows for 2023. And, Gathering of None has never been a touring entity. We go out for like 5, 6, 7-day runs most of the time, sometimes 10. But we hope to do that at some point this year, go out for, at least like a 10-day run or something like that. And it's just so hard because, we've discussed it several times, like, well, we should just get, you should just get hired guns. I'm like, 1, I don't have money to pay people to play for A Gathering of None. And 2, I don't think it would sound as good, man. Like the 5 guys that make up A Gathering of None, like that's our lineup, man. Like I can't see it working with anyone else, even in a live situation. It's like, there's just that, how it is. There's just that magic there when the 5 of us are in the room together, and that's what A Gathering of None sounds like. I don't want it to sound like anything. I don't want it to sound A Gathering of None adjacent. I don't want it to sound like other dudes playing A Gathering of None songs. I want it to sound like this right here. I want it to sound like A Gathering of None. So that's the other reason why we don't tour a lot is, again, we're just so spread out. But I don't want to have fill-in guys, man. I think it cheapens the vibe that we have as a 5-piece, man, if we do it that way. But that's what's going on with Gathering of None right now.
I don't blame you, man. I get where you're coming from, and if I were in your shoes, I would do the same thing. I would just make it work when it works.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, A Gathering of None is one of those bands where, everybody else has other stuff going on. Jeff, our guitar player, Jeff, is also in like 3 other bands. Our guitar player, Justin, is a sound engineer for a living. He's also in like 2 or 3 other bands. Chris is also playing back with this machine and doing some other stuff too on the side. Everybody has, really, really, really heavy duty obligations on the life side of things. They have families, they have, nice jobs that they can't take a lot of time away from and everything like that. And this just is what it is. Like a Gathering of None it's not a hobby band per se by any means, but it's, it's just something that we can't devote the time to it to make it a more, what's the word? No, I don't want to say functioning, because we function just fine, but we can't make it like a regular band. It's got its own separate set of circumstances that we have to work around,
Yeah, it's hard to keep it active, but you're still functioning. You're just not actively functioning.
yeah. It's everything, like I said, everything kind of has to be done within like 3-4 month windows, and that's fine. Like, I don't mind. When we started the Gathering of None, it was just me. And then when, Chris and Justin and Ken and Jeff came into the fold and it became a 5-piece, I still said, I don't want to tour that often. I don't want this to be like a, particularly playing out all the time kind of band, because for the type of stuff that we do, the type of scene that we would be involved in, whatever it might be, because we mix so many things. I don't know what to call us. But, again, I just call us heavy rock, rock with some metal elements here and there, with some punk elements here and there. See, I can't even describe it in one way. But, a Gathering of None is we kind of exist on our own plane, where we just kind of meld so many things together that, we don't know, quite frankly, we don't know what our audience is. And, if we were on a horror punk bill, which we've been on, we stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
If we're on an all metal bill, which we've been on, we stick out like a sore thumb. So if we're on an alternative bill, we stick out like a sore thumb. We might have some of those, each of those elements in some of our songs, but that's not all we are. So it's kind of hard for us to even find places to play and bands to play with, because we do so much genre jumping around. Yeah, that we've made it difficult for ourselves. Kind of. So
someone asked me one time, I can't remember who it was, but I vividly remember giving this description. Someone at one point when I was, when we were, I wanted to say pimping, but that's not the word. When we were promoting the vinyl release of Give Up the Ghost, I had somebody ask me, well, what is this like? What's this band like? Because it was somebody that is one of the people that I can count on to buy everything I put out.
Right.
And I said, well, you can go listen to them, but if you want my opinion, and it just off the top of my head, and I thought it was funny when I said it. I said, it's almost like you know that band Ghost? They said, yeah. I said, imagine if Ghost were not a joke. And I actually like Ghost music. And I get that it's like they're like the hard rock heavy metal. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but to me, I've always thought Ghost is kind of like Queen in a way that they're theatrical and
Sure.
like Alice Cooper, that kind of, they've got that going on. I actually love their music, but I think if I went to see them live, I would probably be like, God, this fucking sucks, because it's so, it's not my bag. Musically,
right.
yes. Theatrically, not my thing.
Yeah, but like I said
that. I said Gathering of None is to me, it's almost like if Ghosts were a little heavier and not as theatrical, but I said it in a meaner way.
And that's funny, because as you know, I'm not a fan of that band, but I try to keep my disdain for them under wraps nowadays, because you don't want to be the old guy in the room crapping on stuff that people like. Let them enjoy stuff, right? And that's funny, because I could absolutely hear it in some ways, because I've listened to them. I've listened to Ghost, and like they're kind of, for all their theatricality and all their presentation, their evil pentagrams and upside down crosses and demonic pope and all that stuff. Their music is pretty accessible, which I find so fun. Which I find so funny, like stacked up against their presentation, because their presentation is just like, So it's kind of funny to me. But I could see that, because there are some elements of dare I say, commercial stuff that a Gathering of None does from time to time. I could absolutely hear a song like Overcast in Virginia on the radio.
Yeah.
For
me, it's the melody. It's a Gathering of None's music is so melodic. For me, it's like the heavy, the heaviness. If you can pick apart heavy parts of Hymns music and Ghost music, I think that's what Aegon has going for you. What you guys have going for you melodically.
That's cool.
But you're a much heavier band than any of those examples.
Yeah, I think we kind of juxtapose, like you said, heavier stuff up against more melodic stuff, and it just works, And honestly, between the five of us, we have so many different influences that doesn't make any sense at all for us to be a band on paper. Because if you were to ask all five of us who our influences were, there maybe be 2 or 3 that are the same between the five of us, but everything else would just be like, okay, especially Chris and Ken. Those guys are both into like prog rock and prog metal and stuff like Nimic and Leprous and all kinds of crazy stuff, and which I like too. Through hanging out with those guys, I've discovered those bands for myself as well. But yeah, it makes no sense at all for us to be a band on paper, except like I said, for there's 2-3 influences that we all share. But the cool thing about that too is you bring in newer influences that maybe I'm not familiar with, or that Justin's not familiar with, or that Jeff's not familiar with, or that Ken and Chris aren't familiar with, and we just kind of throw it all in a pot and we make our stew, so to speak, and it works.
I hear a lot of stuff. I mean, I hate the term hard rock. I'm super jaded about the term hard rock. So if anybody asks me, I always say they're a metal band. But I hear Faith No More. I hear Angel Dust era Faith No More. I hear Sound of White Noise era Anthrax. Like,
that's cool too.
The singer, the singer that was in Anthrax in the 90s, like Sound of White Noise era. Who's that?
That's John Bush, formerly, now again of Armored Saint. Yeah.
Yes. See, I hear John Bush.
That's
hear that era Anthrax. But I mean, you guys are basically a metal band, and
I think so too.
I think you're going to be able to. I think you're going to be able to be fine dying on that hill.
I think so. Like the guitars and the tempos are heavy enough that I think it's. If it's not full on metal, it's absolutely metal adjacent.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'm cool with that.
It's a lot better than a lot of the stuff that you hear that people say is the best of metal right now.
I don't pay attention to that stuff. I make up my own mind. There have been a couple instances where I've kind of like against my better judgment or against my own will, kind of like begrudgingly have checked out bands over the years where people are like, everybody loves them, everybody hypes them up. And literally the only 2 times that they've worked for me was My Chemical Romance and Alkaline Trio. Those 2 bands. Like once I heard those guys, I was like, okay, I get it. I get why people love this stuff so much. This is killer, but everything else, like, I'm not going to name any more names because I don't want to, come off like I said, I don't want to come off like the old guy yelling at the clouds or not letting people enjoy stuff or whatever. But there's so many bands now that like people are just like, oh my God, you have to hear blah blah blah, and I'm like, I'll hear it, and I'm like,
did I really have to hear that?
Okay, like. And again, it's it's just different strokes for different folks, man. I don't have to like it, and you don't have to like what I listen to, man. So it is what it is.
Well, as we wrap up here, I've got a couple questions I want to ask. I'm going to ask every guest, and I will preface this with, for me, I started out, and I imagine you did as well. From what I know from you from back in our late teens, early 20s, I remember you fancied yourself quite a metalhead as a youth, and my gateway into punk rock was metal, and that was Metallica. I was a huge, my first concert I ever went to. I'll only tell this story on this podcast once, so I'm just going to tell it here on the first episode. My first ever concert was in 1987. Metallica Ride the Lightning tour. I was 7 years old. My cousin Travis, who is 7 years older than I am, he was 14 years old. His mother, my Aunt Kathy, took me and him, dropped us off, Charleston Civic Center, ride the lightning tour. I don't remember anything about it because I was 7 years old and I shouldn't have been there. But I was a big metalhead. I like Slayer. Sure. Before the age of 10, I owned every Slayer tape, every Metallica tape, every Anthrax tape, Megadeth. I was a metal kid.
Oh, me too,
but I was on the bus one day, and a friend of mine, I had the 598 Garage Days EP in my yellow sport Walkman on the bus going to elementary school.
Right.
And a kid sitting behind me that was in middle school, who was on the same bus with me, who lived in my neighborhood, he said, "What are you listening to?" And he was actually bullying me, but he ended up being like, "Oh man, this elementary school kid," I was like in 4th grade. He's like, "Holy shit, he's listening to Metallica." And the kid had a bunch. He had a battle jacket. Like, this was like a metalhead kid in the 80s that had a battle jacket on. That was what we called them.
Sure.
And I remember he had patches all over his jean jacket, and they were all punk patches. I vividly remember the Black Flag patch. And I said, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" And he ended up telling me, he said, "Listen, man, some of those Metallica songs are punk songs." And he pointed out the Misfits songs, and he was like, "Listen, go home or do whatever you got to do to track down some Misfits." And the way I got my copy of the 598 Garage Days EP was I went to a record store in Taze Valley called Tronics that was only there for a couple of years. And even people from Hurricane listen to this podcast are like, "I don't even fucking remember that place." My wife doesn't remember it. She's 2 years younger than me and grew up in the same town.
Right.
But I went to Tronics with my fucking quarters that my parents would give me. And I literally my dad would give me quarters and say, "If you're going to buy tapes and waste money, you're not going to waste cash. You can waste quarters that you make for like cutting grass or weed eating or whatever."
Absolutely.
So I go and I bought Misfits. I don't know if it was a collection or what, but I think it was Earth AD actually. I bought a Misfits tape. That was my gateway to punk. And I've been a punk fan ever since. It took me until about the time I got to high school to get into NoFX and Suicide Machines and other types of punk. All through middle school, I basically just listened to metal, and I would listen to Misfits, and I thought I was a big punker. Right. So I tell that story to ask you, what was your gateway into punk rock?
Pretty similar. Actually, the Misfits, obviously, from the Metallica covers, stuff like that. They were by all rights the first quote unquote punk band I ever heard. But my thing was like being as I was more of a metalhead at the time, I'm like, because the Misfits versions of Green Hell and Last Caress and anything like that, they're kind of a little more loose, a little sloppier, as they should be, because they're punk songs, right? But when I heard the original versions, I'm like, this is as tight as the Metallica version, or whatever. The production sucks. It sounds like they recorded in a toilet somewhere, But again, that's the whole punk rock thing too. And I'm thankfully we've gotten out of that over the last 20, 25 years, 30 years probably almost now, that where bands, think that their recordings have to sound like shit for it to be punk rock. I'm so glad that trend is done, and because I've never understood it. Like, why would you want your recording the stuff that you've worked for, these songs that have probably taken shape over years? Why do you want them to sound like crap? You want them to sound good. I've never gotten that whole thing. But yeah, the Misfits obviously first and foremost. But then as much like yourself, as I became a teenager, became aware of more music and I was playing in bands and everything, by that point, there was a little show on MTV called 120 Minutes. And that was where I first heard the Ramones. They played the video for Strength to Endure off the Brain Drain album.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. Not the Brain Drain album. The
Acid Eaters?
No. Mondo Bizarro.
Yeah.
They played Strength to Endure off of Mondo Bizarro one night on 120 Minutes. And I'm like, and at the time I was already kind of starting to listen to, because at that time it's like 92, 93. So I was already familiar with like Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, Mudhoney, all stuff like that, which by in and of itself is kind of punk rock too. So I was kind of familiar with the whole, alternative scene or punk scene at the time. I just hadn't listened to, like, I didn't hear Black Flag yet. I hadn't heard Dead Kennedys yet or anything like that, but I heard the Ramones and I'm like, man, this is just a good song. I don't care if it's not metal. It's just a good song. And so then cut to me buying the Mondo Bizarro album through Columbia House, which I still owe you guys money. I still owe you guys money for that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Columbia House and BMG.
Yeah,
Somebody else
dude.
MDMG could own me if they wanted to.
Pretty much. But so after that, I bought that record and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, I have to hear more stuff like this. And no sooner than I thought that, again, I was watching 120 Minutes one night and Bad Religion's American Jesus video from Recipe for Hate. So at that point I was hooked, and
Yeah.
I've kind of had my toes dipped into the, punk and at least the hardcore, like crossover stuff before I'd heard the Misfits, Ramones, Bad Religion, anything like that, because I was familiar with the band. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Back in the Tooth and Nail days of punk rock, hardcore, whatever, I was familiar with the band called The Crucified, who to me were always the best parts of DRI and Slayer and like a little bit of Minor Threat combined. So I was already kind of familiar with, quote unquote crossover hardcore and punk through that band and through, again, DRI, Suicidal Tendencies, stuff like that. Because those bands always kind of had their punk leanings. They just weren't, their feet weren't fully submerged in that pool. They were just kind of stepping in both areas,
Yeah.
But yeah, so from hearing those bands, then, hearing the Misfits, then Ramones, Bad Religion, that was that. From that point on, I was like, I have to know anything and everything more about this music that I can. And the granddaddy of them all for me, and aside from the Ramones and Bad Religion, are always and forever will be Face to Face. That band,
Hell yeah.
that band changed my life, dude. Like, and to get to tour with them for 6 weeks in 2011 with BLITZKID, that was like,
When you guys did that blew my mind.
It was crazy.
I was like, holy shit, that is, I felt like when I saw that, I was like, they've made it.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Coffey, actually, when I was at the time, Ryan Coffey and I were doing another band, and I said, I know Ryan. So he and I were doing a band, and I was like, did you see that BLITZKID is doing like a short run with Face to Face? And I was like, dude, they've made it. He was like, dude, they sell out shows in Germany. Where the fuck have you been? I was like, oh, sorry.
No, it's funny though, because, around that time when that tour happened, we were not doing a lot of touring in the States. And one of the things that we'd heard, prior to, a couple years previous or whatever, was, like our fan base over here was mad because they're just like, you guys always go to Europe. You always go to Europe and don't play the States, And I'm like, yeah, because, back in the MySpace days, as it were, I always quote this because it makes me laugh every time. We had just played San Diego on tour, and then like cut to a week later, this guy messages us on our MySpace and is like, hey man, when are you guys playing San Diego? And I was like, a week ago. So,
Still
not hating on our U.S. fans, because they came out in force this time out and showed us that they definitely have loved and missed us for a long time, and that was cool. But in those days it was more I don't want to say beneficial, but it was more, it felt more appreciated at the time, not now. At the time, we felt more appreciated when we go to Europe. So but yeah, people would get mad. People get mad, like, man, you guys never toured the States, or I was in Europe. Like, well, it's catered meals and nightliner tour buses versus, hey, here's some drink tickets and some Dominoes. Fuck off. Kind of thing. So.
It's the difference of back then. I'm sure it was the difference of sold out shows every night overseas and paying your bills versus being in America and hoping for 100 people to show up.
Yeah, for real. I remember vividly one time on tour over there, probably the third, maybe the fourth time we were on tour over there. We were with our buddies, the Crimson Ghosts, and we were playing a show with them. I forget where, somewhere in Germany, but just remember their guitar player Gozer comes up to me and he hand on the shoulder, and he's like, hey, TB. And I'm like, how's it going, man? Oh, it's okay. And I was like, what's up, man? You seem bummed out about something. And he goes, not so good crowd tonight. Only 250 people. I was like, what? only 250 people. Like that's like God status to me. Like at that point, 250 people.
You should have been like, you've never played the Princeton Rec Center. 40 people. And you think it's badass because the walls are sweating.
Right, exactly. Oh man. Oh, still no ventilation in that room, by the way. Just played
yeah.
just played there this past July.
Man, I loved it, man. I loved those shows, but God, it was just like a meat locker.
Yeah.
No, not. I mean, that's meat locker's cold. It was something else there.
It was like an oven. It was like an oven.
Yeah.
It's like a convection oven. It's like a convection oven in a room.
Yeah, playing in there in the winter, and in the hallway it would be 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Out by the gym, and in the room it would be like 110. And
yeah.
People that are watching this, TB can back me up on this. The walls would fucking sweat.
Yep.
Like it was like if you imagine blood coming down a wall, but it was just condensation from all of the heat. And if you put 40 to 60 people in that room, and it would smell so bad. It wasn't it was just there was concrete block walls.
Yeah. Yeah. That I remember, I remember vividly the on the last BLITZKID tour, the US tour in 2012, we played the Rec Center. Because that was like our big, hometown show, last Princeton Rec Center show ever for BLITZKID anyway. And I just remember, legally that room can probably hold what, 60, 65 people.
I would say legally 40,
but
safely 60 to 70.
Yeah, safely 60 to 70. Well, there was about 150 people in that room that day.
I don't doubt it.
And yeah, dude, like the walls were sweating, as you said, and even the floor, dude, because people, because middle of the summer, it's July, people sweating all over the place. The floor was just like a freaking oil slick because people are sweating and, falling all over the place, and the walls were sweating, and it's about 200 degrees in there. I just remember we came out and we were loading up our gear, and our drummer at the time, Stripes, he takes his shirt off, takes his stage shirt off, and like wrings it out like on the pavement. And he had one of those like felt like velour kind of drum seats. Yeah. He literally turns the drum seat upside down, presses down on the seat portion of it, and like sweat just comes pouring out of his drum seat. And I started gagging. I was like, oh my God,
it's hot when your ass is sweating.
When you have to wring out your drums, your drum drone, it is a hot room, ladies and gentlemen. It is a hot room.
Do you remember? This was probably around 2000 or 2001. BLITZKID and the Heartbreak Kids, and what was that really fucking kick-ass Bluefield metal band?
This Machine, probably?
No, like a death metal band.
Darkness Remains.
Darkness Remains.
Yeah.
Darkness Remains were supposed to play, but they didn't show. Do you remember this?
I do.
BLITZKID and the Heartbreak Kids, we played in somebody's backyard in like it was like a fucking storm cellar.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember. Yeah, it was like a house show, but yeah, it was like down in like a storm cellar. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I just remember being like, there was no lights. People were outside of. We were set up in the cellar.
Yeah.
There was no lights in the cellar. The PA was outside, so everyone like me and whoever was your drummer at the time, we couldn't hear anything because the amps were in there. It was the craziest show ever.
I remember that, man.
It was one of those where Steve. Sorry, I shouldn't say Steve. It was one of those where Argyle Goolsby he set it up, and I remember we got there, and you guys had already gotten there and set up the PA and shit. And he stopped Ryan and James and I, and he was like, "Guys, really fucking sorry. This is real weird." It's just one of those things, like a friend. Yeah. Because I think it was in Bluefield or where maybe Pikeville or something. It was somewhere adjacent to Princeton Bluefield.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know exactly where it was, but I remember exactly the show you're talking about, though, because that was. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing with our lives today? What's going on? Yeah, man, those were good times. But like I said, it went Misfits, Ramones, Bad Religion, Face to Face for me, and those were the bands who made me love punk rock.
That's awesome. So last question I'm going to ask, and again, I'll do this for this first episode of the podcast, and I won't do it moving forward, but I titled the podcast, Oh, Hell Yeah, twofold. There's twofold reasons why I did that. Number one is over the last 5 years or so, I've caught myself habitually saying, oh, hell yeah. It's like the thing that, how people will say, "Hey man, so how's your day been going? Did you have a good day?" "Oh hell yeah."
Oh hell yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I caught myself doing it habitually. And then it became kind of a band joke where it was constantly, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I would say, "Oh hell yeah," you guys want to play this show? "Oh hell yeah." And then
Right,
somebody in
right.
my band would say, "Oh hell yeah." Mike would say, "Oh hell yeah, brother." So it
Yep,
kind of became a thing.
absolutely.
And also, as coming from someone who's a lifelong wrestling fan, I've been watching into pro wrestling since I was 4 years old. I know that you're a pro wrestling fan, so this question will be easy for you. But what I want to do for my last question to the podcast for every episode is I want to ask the guest what got them into pro wrestling and who is their favorite pro wrestler.
For me, it was just watching the old WWE, WWF at the time. WWE, like Tuesday Night Titans on USA Network. That's where I first, became aware of pro wrestling, and I'd start watching it every Tuesday night because my dad was cool enough to let me stay up until it went off the air, which is probably a little past my bedtime at the time. I was like seven or eight, whatever it was. But through that, I of course early on, everybody was all about Hulk Hogan, and all that. I had the Hulkster playset, man. I had the two little dumbbells and the headband and the jump rope and all that stuff. But he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy who made me, as I got older. He wasn't the guy who made me go, man, I love wrestling. You know what I mean? Like as I got older, of course, as a kid, I was all about the Ultimate Warrior. I'm still an Ultimate Warrior mark. I know that maybe he wasn't the best guy or whatever, as we've learned over the last couple of years, but to do what that dude did in the business in such a short time that he did it in, that's pretty friggin' phenomenal.
Yeah.
Especially at the time when, Hulk Hogan's top of the mountain and they say, "All right, dude, Warrior, you're gonna be the new guy. You're gonna be the top guy now. We're dethroning Hogan. He's passing the torch." That didn't happen back then. Hulk Hogan held on to the title for years and years and years. So Ultimate Warrior back then obviously was my favorite after I got tired of Hulk Hogan. I think what a lot of people did. But as I grew older, as I got more into the theater and the being smart to the business kind of thing of wrestling, Ric Flair, hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down, man, Ric Flair. Because he can make a broomstick look good in a match, and him and Ricky Steamboat is another one, Macho Man. So I don't know. If I had to do a Mount Rushmore, it'd be Flair, Steamboat, Macho Man, and probably Stone Cold Steve Austin. But I'll never forget first days of wrestling, getting into it, just becoming enamored with it and loving it as I did. Definitely Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior first and foremost. But
yeah,
my favorite wrestler to this day, Ric Flair.
Yeah, it's for me, it's Ric Flair and Stone Cold Steve Austin, without a doubt. And just for me, I grew up. I don't know. I think I was lucky in Hurricane, the Charleston area. We got the NWA shows.
Oh yeah,
we got the NWA house shows that would come through Charleston, the Civic Center, and we would get the NWA shows. I mean, I'm sure I had when I was a kid. I'm sure in that Charleston, Huntington area, we got the WWF shows, but I just remember watching NWA, everything. So for me, it was Sting and Ric Flair and Magnum TA and Dusty Rhodes, and the Four Horsemen, and the Legion of Doom, and Barry Windham. Oh man,
all those guys. It's funny. The only time I remember, and at the time it was already WCW, it had already been bought out. But the only time I can remember seeing a show in this area at Bluefield was WCW, and it was 1990, I think it was. It was at the Brush Fork Armory. Yeah, 1990, dude. Check out this card. I still remember it. I don't have like the program or anything still, but the card was Flying Brian Pillman versus Nature Boy Ric Flair for the title for the main event. The Samoan SWAT team versus the Road Warriors in a steel cage match.
Shit.
Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, I think, was wrestling stunning Steve Austin at the time. It was crazy, dude. Yeah, dude, it was a great friggin' card, man. I wish I still had the program for it, but yeah, I just remember like being I'm marked out because I got patted Ric Flair's back. You know?
Oh man.
So
it
was awesome.
Is that the same show that Jim Cornette got sued, or was the Armory show in Beck? It was the Armory in Beckley.
Yeah.
That you've heard that story about.
Oh yeah.
I think it was Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Smoky Mountain Wrestling did like a house show in the Armory in Beckley, and Jim Cornette ended up getting sued for assault or something. I was mixing those two events, but I realized as I was asking the question that no, it was a Smoky Mountain show. I'm
not surprised. Like, you know, he was a heat magnet back in those days.
Oh yeah.
Somebody probably took a swipe at him or something. He probably swiped back. So.
Do you have a memory of all the shows you went to as a kid? Was that the first time you ever touched a wrestler? Because I have many like kind of cringe in my mind. I have cringe memories of being a kid and running up to the aisle and touching wrestlers. And I didn't mean to, but I was a kid and I patted Barry Windham on the ass and he was wearing chaps. And I was just like, even being a kid, like 9 years old, I was like, what the fuck did I just do? Why did I touch that man's ass?
You know, it's the adrenaline and, you know, not knowing any better maybe at the time. But no, that's literally the only time I've ever, you know, slapped flesh with any professional wrestlers was, I just patted Ric Flair on the back. And then I just remember like being grossed out because of how sweaty he was, you know, I was like 13, you know, so I'm like, oh God, you know, he's so sweaty. Jesus. You know,
was that pre-match or post-match?
Oh, post-match, yeah, post-match, okay. yeah. He was, you know, he was all, you know, Ric Flaired out at that point. He'd already gigged himself. He'd already gigged himself real good on the forehead. His, you know, hair was all like red up front. You know,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool that show was even there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that happened, but I just remember like. My friend Joey Miller and I, who was like another big wrestling nerd with me back in my junior high days at the time, he's like, "We have to go to this. We have to go to this." I'm like, "Yes, we do. We have to go to this."
It was probably one of those on tour, like, you know, how they used to do those house show tours where they would do like the C markets to prepare for Starrcade.
Yeah,
I bet that was what that was. It was like
it's probably something like that. Yeah,
where they like travel the match that they're going to do at Starrcade.
Exactly. That's probably what it was. Because if I remember correctly, after that house show on WCW TV, there was the whole you know, Hollywood Blondes versus you know, Arn and Rick for the tag titles or whatever. So I don't know if they were just maybe trying to see how well like Pillman and Flair worked together or whatever. But yeah, there was probably something that was like, okay, well, we got this preliminary send the guys out on a couple of loops, see how they work together, see how they get along, and then we'll go from there.
That's awesome. Well, since we're both big wrestling fans, I'll keep it going. I'll ask you another question. What you don't have to put a lot of thought into it, but knee-jerk reaction, what do you think is the most cringe gimmick of all time? I'll give you mine, Black Scorpion.
Yeah, that's pretty good. As far as, I mean, there's a ton of cringy ones now, but as far as that could be an hour conversation just on the how shitty wrestling has become now. But as far as older ones, I have to revert back to like 90s WWE when everybody had an occupation.
Yeah.
And that was TL Hopper.
Oh yeah.
The fucking, you know, toilet cleaner guy, you know, came out to the ring with a plunger and all that stuff. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Like, you know, because I'm like, I don't know, like 13, 14 at the time, maybe 15 even, you know, so I'm seeing all these guys like Duke the Dumpster Drosy and, you know, Doink and, you know, and then here comes TL Hopper with this fucking plunger and, you know, his toilet flushing sound for the entrance music. And I'm like, what are they doing? What are they doing?
The name doesn't even make sense for the gimmick.
Right. Like Hopper does, but like TL, like I don't. What's TL? You know,
at least Doink is a good name for a clown.
Sure.
And what was the next thing that he did after Doink the Clown? He was the Repo Man. That makes sense because he repossesses cars.
Right.
Duke the Dumpster Drosy is a kind of a weird name. But it's funny how Vince McMahon was able to make some of those gimmicks that, as shitty as they were, he was able to make some of them fun. Like, I really liked, I hated the oddities, but I really liked, what was the family that Hacksaw, or that Hillbilly Jim had?
Oh, the Godwins.
Yeah,
Godwins.
I like that gimmick.
Yeah, they were entertaining, man. Henry, and then like the reality of it is
Henry
like,
Godwin.
yeah, Hog, you know. And then the other guy's name was Phineas something Godwin, which spelled pig. You know, it's like, come on, man. But the reality of those two guys is where they were two like legitimate like shit kickers. You know, they were like legitimate badass dudes.
Yeah.
They just got saddled with the terrible gimmick. You know, as entertaining as it might have been sometimes. You know, and if going even further back, like the Undertaker gimmick should have never friggin' worked.
Oh no,
never,
absolutely not. Yeah,
but
it wouldn't work today. Look at Bray Wyatt. People say that Bray Wyatt works, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It's kind of like his gimmick's almost like a meme.
Yeah. As much as I want to like him, man, like his best days were when he had the Wyatt family and he was doing doing the Hawaiian shirt, Waylon Mercy kind of thing. You know, that was awesome. I don't know why they decided to, you know, deviate from that at all. Yeah.
If they would have stuck with the Cape Fear gimmick, they never would have lost me on him.
Absolutely, man, because it was so
obviously
cool.
Back then, and I don't watch WWE now, so I don't know. But back then, it was like they could not fathom how they could have somebody be popular in NXT and bring them to main TV and keep that gimmick. Like, if it's popular one TV show, it's going to be popular everywhere. It's the same audience.
It's like, you know, the same people that are watching NXT are watching Raw and SmackDown. So it's like, why change it? You know, I don't know.
I enjoyed Husky Harris in the original NXT more than I enjoy what Bray Wyatt is now.
That's pretty bad. No, but yeah, as far as cringy gimmicks, man, TL Hopper had to be up there for me. I'm trying, dude. There's so many more. I mean, you know, there was what was oh my God, what was his name? Fantasio or whatever.
Oh,
Who lasted like a week or something, you know, and then they were like, okay, get out of here. You know,
it's funny because people want to crap on WWF for all the bad 90s gimmicks, but dude, WCW, I mean, Oz and the Diamond Stud. The Diamond Stud's actually pretty cool. But
PN News.
Oz, PN News and fucking what was the one? Oh, the Yeti. I mean, God damn it! They had so much shit.
It was horrible. It was there. Remember Arachnaman, which they got a cease and desist from Marvel Comics about. Yeah, because it was just literally a Spider-Man suit with purple and yellow. That's and the ding dongs. Remember those? Yeah, the guys that would ring the bell the entire match.
They had the one guy who was actually a legitimate good worker for being a fat guy, and they ended up making him like some. Like, what was he? Norman the Lunatic?
Norman the Lunatic, yeah.
And I mean, that would not go over in today's day and age because they were basically making fun of people that were mentally challenged.
Absolutely, 100%. Same with Eugene in the WWE.
Yeah,
100%, man. Like that would get canceled in a heartbeat, and rightfully so. You know, you shouldn't make light of mentally handicapped people. You know, it's like that's it's just like in the back in the day. You know, you had Colonel Robert Parker coming to the ring before they were Harlem Heat, coming to the ring with the guys in Harlem Heat in like prison outfits and chains around them.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
And
I know we're in the South here, but shit, you know.
Basically, I love that guy as a character. Yeah. But when he was their manager, he was more like a slave master than a manager.
Absolutely. And then, that's the thing, like, even for like the early 90s, even watching it then, because growing up in the area that we did, I'm no stranger to overt racism, unfortunately, but growing up in the area that we did, even like seeing that on national television in the early 90s, I'm like, this is probably not a good idea. Like why are you guys? No.
That's a trip. Well, brother, I truly appreciate your time.
I've enjoyed it, man.
I said this was going to be a half an hour long, and it's been an hour and 10 minutes. But the good news is, I'm not going to edit a damn second of it. It's our debut episode, so
That's right.
It's going to be a long one.
It's going to
I
be the long
appreciate
one.
your time, and I will. I'll pepper in some ads for Eddie Fest throughout this.
Appreciate that.
I am super stoked to be in a room with you for the first
Seriously,
time in
dude.
2 decades.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's going to be good to see you, man.
It's going to be great. So I'll be seeing you here in like 2 weeks at Eddie Fest. And anything else you want to promote before you go out?
No, I think that's it. Just find us on Facebook. Just search for Eddie Fest or Eddie Fest 2. You'll find the event page, or you'll find the actual page for the event, Eddie Fest. We have a standalone page for the event now, since it's going to be an annual thing. You can look us up on Instagram. It's official Eddie Fest as well. Gathering of None official on Instagram. A gathering of none.bandcamp.com if you want to check out some of our releases. Our entire discography is on sale on Bandcamp for less than $30. Just putting that out there. Let's see, BLITZKID, A Corpse with No Name Productions.com. That's where you can find everything you need to know about BLITZKID. We got some tour merch left over if you want to hit up some of that. That's about it, man.
Cool. I'll link all that stuff below in the memo box too. But TB, I almost called you by the name I know you by.
It's hard, man.
There's friend names and there's internet names.
Yeah. It's funny, back in the day, like real quick, before my, Facebook made you use your real name or a semblance of your real name, as they do now. I remember back in the MySpace days when, we go play shows and like, you never knew anyone's real name because you didn't have to do that on there. Right. So, I'm Devilman 138, and I'm like, oh, hey brother, what's up?
So, yeah. What's up, Devilman 138? Where's your girlfriend? 666.
Yeah.
Bush Baby Queen 16.
Exactly. 13 Halloweens with the Z, or whatever. I don't know, but I would always giggle about that back in the day, because hey, I'm Creepy Ghoul 13, or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, cool. Well, what's your real name? John. Yeah. Hey John, how are you, man?
So nice to meet you, Pentagram 666-420 Pentagram.
Right. What's your real name? Dan. That's okay, cool. Nice to meet you, Dan. But no, that always used to get a chuckle out of me, because people go painstakingly, make up these names for themselves, and then you meet them and they, because that's when the downturn happened, when social media started, letting everybody be not themselves.
Yeah.
Which, now I get it, but
now we're being, I don't know if gatekeeping is the right word, but now everybody has to be who they are, or you can fuck off.
That's it. No fake names here.
No fake, you want to have a fake name, you start a business account, bitch.
That's right. You can call yourself TB Monstrosity on a business account, son.
Hell yeah.
But
well, brother, I truly appreciate the time, and I look
Absolutely,
forward to Eddie Fest. We're gonna have a great time. And anybody that wants to buy tickets for Eddie Fest, are those available online?
They are not available online. You would have to get in touch with either myself, Jessica East, or the guys from Moonscar, This Machine, Late Night Zero, and Sever the Wicked. So we have them available through those channels. And honestly, if you guys want a ticket, just message me, man. I'll send you my Cash App or my PayPal, and you'll have the ticket waiting for you at the door. That's how we can work that out as well. We put tickets up for Rock for Recovery on the LDR page when we did that show, and they didn't do that great. So that's the reason why we're just kind of trying to do them physical. And honestly, man, it's not a bad price. It's $20 for 12 bands on the day of the show. That's not a bad price at all. $15 $15 in advance.
Yeah, and if you're watching this, Eddie Fest, it's not only a good, not only for a good cause, but it's a great bunch of bands. Like TB said, A Gathering of None, first show they've played in years. And if you're within a few hours of the Bluefield, West Virginia area, what else do you have to do on, what is it?
Saturday night.
Saturday
day, January 21st.
January 21st. Sounds
all
great.
day long, all day long. You can
And
you can come and see a few bands, go get something to eat. If you go, as long as you got your wristband and stuff on, you come back in, watch the rest of the show, because it's going to go from noon until 10 p.m.
And I'll be there with the Coffin Curse booth, and I'll be selling some swag, giving away some CDs. We're having a good time. Come
Absolutely.
to Eddie Fest. And thanks everybody for tuning into the first ever Oh Hell Yeah Coffin Curse Records podcast. Thank you, TB. I really appreciate it, brother.
You got it, man. Thank you for having me, dude.